and Jonathan Ross. It's great to be this side rather than I'm coming on to your MedFit talks and thinking, oh, I hope all the technology works. It's fantastic that you could make it here. We just had a brief conversation about your original name that I'm going to let you take over because that's actually quite a cool story. But you're also the owner of FunTensity, so working on making movement fun as well as building cognition and working with the brain, which I absolutely love and hope we can dig into. And also, I know you've got an amazing story that brought you into the fitness industry that I first heard when I met you in Bangkok, and I could just see your passion come alive. So welcome and welcome, Bobby. Thanks for coming back. I know you've not been very well.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Great seeing you. Johnny, I just got to
Likewise.
say, the hair, the taste and beard, exquisite style.
I know. If only Joanne would follow our lead, I think she could be rocking this style as well.
Well, next episode. Give it a go.
Can you tell us about Aion?
Aion. Okay.
Aion, yes.
So I'm guessing like anyone who's ever worked in the fitness industry, or if you still do, everything takes a bunch of pivots and turns and it doesn't always go like you thought. So that's really, I like talking about myself only in the context of it being useful to people who are listening, because I just feel like other than that, it's just navel gazing. So in this context, when I first started in fitness in the late 1990s, my original plan was to open a studio. Like most fitness professionals, I started working in a gym, wanted to open a studio, and it's like, oh, I want to have my own space. And at the time, studios were really just small versions of gyms. They were people were just getting a small space, and they were building out these equipment rooms that were just like every other gym, where there's a $5,000 piece of equipment that works one muscle at a time. And I knew pretty early on that that wasn't vibing with me, but it's still, I didn't really have the imagination yet. So I'd originally wanted to open a studio and start a brand name. And what I did was I was copying from Nike, or Nikkei, as you say it in Greek, where they have this short term that's a Greek term and it represents something. And it's Nikkei is the Greek goddess of victory. And I was essentially just copying that idea and coming up with the term Aion Fitness, which AION is the Greek word, which means it's where we get our term eon from. And it essentially means an era, a lifetime, or an infinitely long span of time. And that spoke to me as what I wanted to do in the industry, is prevent fitness that lasts a lifetime. And so I started that business name thinking like that's going to be my studio brand. And ultimately I decided several years later not to go in the direction of opening a studio and having a space and managing people. So I discovered I was much more passionate about sharing concepts through the written word, spoken word, and just being out there, being kind of an information provider. And so that kind of took me away from the studio route. And so the origins of it, though, you've heard a little bit of this before. So just the idea for me was to bring fitness to the masses and the people who need it the most, not the people who already understand it or already kind of get it. Because my history is family history. I tell it as my 800 pounds of parent story. And what that means, that's almost 400 kilos, 360 something kilos, I think that is. And so my dad was 424 pounds when he died. He was 192 kilos. This was 1995, it's 30 years ago, almost to the day. And I was 24. I graduated with a degree in astronomy. Other than not wanting to work in astronomy, I kind of figured that much out from getting a degree in it. It's more of a hobby or interest rather than a career. I didn't really have a direction for a career, but his death gave me that clarity when I thought about fitness and made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. And so that was, but my goal was always to bring fitness to people like him. So then fast forward 20 years or so later, really probably not that far when I started the journey. And even around 2010, 2009, maybe 2011, I was in a couple of presentations that Bobby had given about the brain and motivation. And he was one of a handful of people that was very instrumental in lighting a spark inside of me for pursuing brain fitness, but also the decision-making process. And so that's what ultimately led that journey in the first part of the 20 teens was what led to me launching FunTensity, which is my brand creating fun plus intensity. So yes, it's high intensity interval training, but it's fused with brain science and brain fitness. So I like to say like the 80% of the people will come for the fun, the 20% of the people will come for the brain fitness. So when someone's keenly interested in the brain fitness, I'll highlight the foundation on which the program is built out of brain fitness. When someone's just interested in the fun aspect, because they always hated exercise, and I'm trying to change that emotional response they have to it, then I'll emphasize the fun stuff. We use traditional equipment, of course, medicine balls, ropes, dumbbells and things, kettlebells, but we also use balloons and rubber chickens. So there's an element of playfulness and silliness. And it's also centered around a strong social connection. All the exercises are partner-based for a reason. And it's not just partner-based like we're both doing the same thing at the same time, like we're both doing a dumbbell shoulder press. That's not really partner training. The exercises are incumbent upon the participation of the partner, where I'm throwing a rubber chicken to you with my feet, you have to catch it with your hands and throw it back to me. So there's fun, interactive, playful elements. I was doing well with it. And then, as you can imagine, when you have a partner-based training program that involves people being in close proximity to each other, COVID put a hard stop on that. So it's been a little bit of a challenge to keep the brand going. And I also pivoted a little bit to creating a video course for brain fitness, the Alzheimer's and brain fitness course that I launched in 2021, because I was kind of not able to do the traditional stuff I was doing, and COVID put kind of a hard stop on FunTensity. So there's a brief walk through the last almost 30 years of my career. So there we go.
A couple of things I love about that is for those listening that potentially might not know where their career is going, just that honesty in you weren't quite sure where it was going, but something emotionally touched you, your parents, and that changed the course of where you were going. But obviously with that brings that true passion behind it, which I think is what comes out every time when I hear you speak. Recently when you did your GLP-1 talk as well, but also more recently seeing you do your FunTensity in your bedroom. And I love that you actually did that presentation from your room, because so many trainers do feel intimidated that, they might be online from their back garden, their bedroom, as well as teaching in clubs. But that's what it's about, is making it real and connecting that. But one of the things you did was you used that analogy of actually getting people to move and write out a place that they felt emotionally connected to. I wondered if you could talk about that a little bit for us.
Yeah, well, ultimately, what I discovered pretty quickly is that the best program in the world is useless if no one does it. And I also started learning from working in the industry actively with people over the years that just people have this, they have this categorization in their head of exercise. It feels like a chore, it feels like a bore, and they don't want to do it anymore. I'm not trying to rhyme on purpose, it just came out that way. And what I wanted to do was give people a little bit about what I experienced as a kid. I didn't really exercise until I was in my 20s. My happy place was I was running around outside, playing with my friends, playing with the kids in my neighborhood. It was having squirt gun battles, snowball fights, climbing trees, building snow forts, climbing fences, just you name it, running through sprinklers. We did all of that stuff. And that was my happy place. And the emotional response that I had to that is something I wanted to give people with exercise, because I really believe that's how we're supposed to feel when we're moving. And too many people view it as this chore and this thing that just has to get knocked off the to-do list. And if we forever categorize it as something that feels like grocery shopping, cleaning house, and picking up the dry cleaning, it's always going to be a struggle in a life that's full of many other responsibilities. However, if it's something you're drawn to, it makes you free from having to use willpower to try to force yourself to do it over and over again. And the neat thing that happens in an outcome perspective is that you will find that people, and this is specifically for anyone in the fitness industry, you will find that when you create an enjoyable experience for people, they will work harder, but their subjective assessment of how hard they are working is actually lower. So they will actually produce more physical work, but they won't feel it as hard. They won't report it feeling as hard. And that's a pretty powerful thing to deliver for someone. And I'll give you a quick story. There was one woman who was coming to my FunTensity classes, and she said, I'll never forget this because it's the strangest thing I had ever heard. The first time she came to the class, And just to paint it for everyone a picture of what it's like, it's a circuit-based class where everybody has a partner. So you and your partner would stay at one exercise station for 4 sets, and then we would rotate through. And there's typically anywhere from 8 to 9 exercises that make up the circuit, and it's all time-based work and recovery sets. And some of it is using stuff like vipers, med balls, kettlebells, like I mentioned, heavy ropes, but then there's balloons, rubber chickens, some silly stuff. And even the exercises themselves can be a little bit silly. Even if it's a traditional exercise, I'll put in fun, playful elements in it. We always finish with a game. So there's the setup of what it looks like. I even have a 360-degree video. If you go to the FunTensity website, just funtensity.com, and you go to see it, and then there's a link down there to video, you can see what a circuit workout looks like. But this woman came for the very first time, and she got finished, and she said to me, "That was the most fun I've ever had in a workout class, but I don't think I'm ever coming again." So and I went like, hold on a second, what's going on here? I said, tell me a little bit more about this. So what had happened was, she was essentially so caught up in the fun elements of it. She's a little bit competitive by nature. She was a tennis player, didn't really work out as consistently as she wanted to. She's a little competitive, and that was the key. She got so into the fun elements, she actually overworked. She was feeling a little bit nauseous at the end because she pushed herself so hard on the interactive, competitive, playful elements of it that she wasn't feeling good physically at the end. So I was like, well, that's on you a little bit. Just make sure you pull back. If your body's saying, take the foot off the accelerator a little bit, go ahead and do that. I want to give her the permission to do that. But I was like, no, please come back. You just said that was the most enjoyable experience you've ever had in a workout class ever. So please, you have to come back. We'll just teach you how to moderate your intensity a little bit. But the emotional experience she was having is exactly what I'm trying to create, because I see the barrier that many people have is they're not drawn to it. So it feels harder because they're doing it grudgingly. And it's always going to feel like a struggle. And then when anything comes up where your day doesn't go the littlest bit not perfectly, the smallest obstacle will stop you if you're not supremely motivated and you're not drawn to it. So I try to just create a movement and exercise experience that is more engaging, and people are actually drawn to it enough that it lowers the difficulty they have with getting started and sticking with it.
I was having a conversation last night with a colleague around another conversation I had many years ago in a boardroom, where one of the executives said the problem with our thinking in this room is we think that our competition is other health club chains. And that's the furthest thing from the truth. Our competition is the local pub. Our competition is the restaurant. Our competition are things that people want to do versus things that they need to do.
Amen.
And what really strikes me about this conversation, besides the fact that you have the heart of a teacher, is talking about one, brain health. In every industry I touch, I keep hearing we have to do more and more with less and less for longer and longer, and that's scary. Burnout is reaching crisis levels. And then it's like, well, I want to provide this for people who need it the most. And sometimes people who need it the most are exposed to it the least, either in their past or in their day. They don't realize how fun movement is because they may not have the same reference point that we have. What is the messaging, or what's a starting point of engagement for people like that, where they make that link between, oh, exercise, something I dread, and wait, hold on, challenging movement, maybe even in a group, I like this.
Yeah, the answer to that question, I'll start with a simple observation, and I'll say there's no one born that hates physical activity, because there are no fish born that hate water. Fish need water to survive. We need movement to thrive. Now, there are varying degrees of how much someone might like it from one person to the next. The difference then is taking an adult who has really learned to dislike physical activity. It's a learned response. And again, there are varying degrees of how much someone might like it. But that means they've had some negative experiences. Either they weren't good at sports, picked on for not being good at sports. They were pushed into sports or physical activities that they really didn't enjoy. Maybe they weren't as fast, or maybe they were even just born later in the year, so they weren't as physically developed as the other kids in their class, and they're just a little bit behind. And Playing tag wasn't even as fun. That's all a learned response. And that can even be learned by the way fitness is presented in the fitness industry. Trainers will often brag about making someone sore for 3 days. Like, no, that's overtraining. So there's a lot of things that we sell. We sell the intensity, we sell the misery as a benefit, and it's not. And then that gets into people's heads. And if you do word associations with fitness and exercise and fitness trainer, they're going to have some pretty scary imagery come to mind. Changing that involves either asking someone to say, okay, if I could snap my fingers and make you magically feel better in your body and have enough energy, what would you love to do? And with whom would you love to do it? And I don't know. Okay, well, what did you love to do as a kid? If it's nothing, what do you think you might want to try as an adult? What forms of doing something out in the world that involve movement, doesn't even have to be challenging enough to classify as exercise, but if you're moving in the context of something that seems enjoyable to you, that's my starting point. If you don't know what it is, we discover it. I just keep asking what I call usefully annoying questions, trying to peel back the layers, because someone may not have actually reflected on what they might find enjoyable with movement, because they may have for so long adopted a mindset of not enjoying it, even if it's unintentional, that their brain has lost the ability to see a reality in which they enjoy movement, and piercing that bubble to get them to imagine a future in which they're doing something they've never done before that they might want to try, or something they used to enjoy that they would like to return to. Or the third option is to make it an opportunity to spend quality time with the people you love. And looking at the top thing I've seen put on paperwork during 2020, when I was out of work during COVID, I went and looked at a bunch of my old paperwork from clients. The number one thing that I saw written down in my handwriting on their paperwork, which means it came from the probing that comes in when I'm doing the follow-up questioning of their initial responses to paperwork. So you see the typical responses like have more energy, get in shape, feel better, these generic, unhelpful responses. And through the thing that I wrote down the most in my own handwriting was some version of play with my grandkids or kids. So that's having a shared experience with a loved one. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's being able to get down on the ground and crawl around and play with your grandkids and wrestle with them a little bit. Or maybe it's play tag at a birthday party and you don't get winded. If it's either something you want to do or something you used to do, or someone you love that you want to have cherished experiences with, those are our three pathways to discover that for someone.
Yeah, I love the autonomy and self-selection around experience and outcome, as opposed to, like you said, selling misery and coming from something that I think is not only prescriptive prematurely, but it's dismissive of intrinsic motivation and how powerful that is in terms of sustainable behavior change.
Yeah, I've got a good way I even pitch that to people. You mentioned intrinsic motivation, extrinsic motivation, and the humorous way I always try to find to illustrate points for people. And so if anyone happens to be listening to this and you're that person who struggles with getting started with exercise and you always feel like you never stick with it, think about what motivates you. And if it's extrinsic, look at a horror movie. I'm in a room and the axe murderer busts in the door. What do? I scream, I go running out of the building usually it's into the woods. And what happens when the person is running one way, but they're always looking behind them? They always trip and fall. When you're looking at the scary stuff behind you, you're trying to leave behind, you're going to trip and fall. Look at what's ahead of you. Look at what you want to go towards, not what you're trying to avoid that's external. Look at what you want pointed ahead of you and you won't trip. But if you're looking back, running away, you're going to trip.
I wonder how many characters would have been saved following that advice. Because Jason Voorhees, I understand why he's upset. I totally get it.
Yes.
Funny joke. I went to go see in cinema Friday the 13th, the first one, with my wife because she had never seen it. So we went to a late night show. Watching that over again, it seemed comical. But like in like the second one, the third one, yeah, he's not really hard to run away from. It's just self-inflicted injury. Like if only people would listen to that, like look forward, like he's not going to catch anybody.
No. Moving at his speed for sure. Yeah, that's cool. You went to see that with your wife recently. It's a good classic 80s horror movie. If anyone listening hasn't seen that, do check it out. If you like horror movies, that is.
She made a very inappropriate joke. She's like watching this, and Pam Voorhees, I think it was her name was Pam, like Jason's mom. And it's like, okay, this woman is extremely irritable 1 minute, then she's murderous, then she's lovely, she's back to murderous again. She's like, is this a movie about women struggling with menopause? I was like, no, I think there's a little bit more to it than that in the backstory. But yeah, okay, love. Fair point, I guess.
Yeah, that's a good one, actually. You know, you just got to have a very robust sense of humor to appreciate that one.
So, what is it, John, that as an industry within our messaging, I don't want to say we got wrong, but we could do a better job of communicating from the perspective of the potential client?
Yeah, that's a big question. There's really two answers that come to mind. One is on the equipment sort of owner operator side. I think there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of copying. I say fear in terms of having the courage to market in different ways, in that we might sit in a boardroom and discuss how we want to be different and do things differently, but when push comes to shove, we want to look like everybody else looks. We want to market health clubs in the same way because we're too scared to take the risk to be different. But the reality is the way fitness is presented right now, especially on the equipment and the industry side itself, as far as the clubs and studios, from the big health clubs to the boutique studios, the way we do things is never going to be a solution for the masses, because the boutique studios are really just a small version of a health club, and everything's pretty much presented the same way. And aside from having a community of people that you know is there to do the same thing, that certainly helps a little. It's not moving the needle much. And I think of the fitness industry as a shoe store that has the best shoes, the best brands, the highest quality, but only sells it in one size. And what we do is we keep talking about the quality of our shoes and the brands and the manufacturing and how effective they are at providing proper coverage and performance for your feet when you're doing different things. Where someone comes in and they need a size 10, and we keep going, oh, our shoes are the best quality, and all we have is size 7 or something. And so for the people who have size 7 feet, our shoes are fantastic. But for the people who don't, then we're leaving a lot of people unserved. And then for the practitioners, it's really the way we do program design, I think, is the big problem. We assume that people, when they come to us, they are as switched on with fitness as we are. And what I learned years ago is that we're not. And so my astronomy background will come up here. It's almost like we're on Planet Fitness, not the chain, an actual planet called fitness. And they're on planet diabetes or planet obesity or planet, you know, I don't feel good in my body, whatever you want to call it. And we're on planet fitness communicating with these other worlds saying, it's great here. It's a paradise. Come over. Well, space travel is scary. It's very dangerous. It's intimidating. It's expensive. It's terrifying. And many of those people already don't feel good enough to make the journey. We can go to their world and show them how to come back to ours. But we too often start with the assumption that because someone's hired us or they're talking to us as a fitness professional, it's like, oh, they must want fitness as badly as I do. So they say, these are my goals, and we start making a program that will achieve their goals. Fantastic. The number one question I used to get in the early days of my career when I would show someone a program, I started noticing the pattern. I would show someone the program, we get to the end of the session, or maybe if it takes a couple of sessions, I've shown them everything they need to know. The number one question I got was not, is this going to work? It was almost every time, how long is this going to take? I heard that enough times that it made the light bulb go off. So as practitioners, the way I would like to see us adjust things is when someone presents us what their goals would be with physical activity and exercise, we flip how we do it. Instead of starting with the movements and the programming and the individual program variables and the equipment we want to show them that's cool, start with the available amount of time they have and fill it with whatever. Because when I talk to someone, when they're talking to me, I'll say, how much time do you have available for exercise? And they might say 60 minutes, 4 to 5 days a week. And I know from talking to them already what I've already learned. That's probably not likely true. That's best case scenario. And we don't get best case scenario days that often. most of our days have some kind of challenge in them that we didn't expect, either from our personal or the professional side of our lives. So what's the available amount of time we have that's realistic on a given day? Then we use that. If it's 30 minutes, if it's 45, great. Now I fill that bucket of time with things that I know will work. But I also will typically believe it's a good idea to give people, okay, in case of emergency, and I don't have time to do my full workout, let's do this little smaller version. So you give people a way to still feel successful, even if everything doesn't go right in their day. But we also challenge the amount of time they say they have available, because we focus on fitness. They're trying to fit fitness into the rest of their life. And if we don't address the realistic amount of time that they can devote to it, and then fill it with whatever, because there's so many things that will work, the specifics of program design should come last, not first. So my goal for the industry practitioners, just to summarize this, is to say, let's start with a bucket of time that someone can realistically give you first, then fill it with things that you know will work, and give them permission to do a little bit less if necessary, so they still show up and do it. Because what that does, that creates a behavior pattern that they're showing up to do the thing. What they do doesn't matter as much at first, because we're trying to create a behavior pattern. And then on the industry side, let's have the courage to market a little bit differently, to speak to the people who need our help the most, the 80% or so of the population who doesn't regularly use our services that we keep saying we would like to tap into, but we never successfully do, because we only have the courage to show already fit people getting more fit.
I don't know if it's because I'm a little bit of a nerd by nature, but I feel like that is one of the best explanations and narratives on that question I've ever received. Like, thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you for saying that. I think about this stuff a lot, and I love the industry. I love the people in it. I want to see them have successful careers, not just jobs, but actual careers. And I want to see the impact that we can have as an industry magnified, help more people like my dad. You know, that's really what it's all about.
What I loved, sorry, Bobby.
I was just saying, even in the well-being industry, which is different than the fitness industry, although a lot of people in fitness would suggest it's synonymous, there's a difference in application, there's a difference in mindset and the issues that we tackle. But I remember a couple of years ago launching a group coaching program, where all we did the first few weeks were talk about who you are, what you value, what it is you want, and what you really don't want. People seem to be very clear, because they're confronted with that every single day. And then, as you were saying, our first steps were just creating habits that have to do with the person you want to be, the experience of that person you want to have, and what you want to move away from. Whether that's taking more relaxation, whether that's reading, whether that's spending more dedicated time with family members without devices. And all of that is right in the center of what we would call well-being, but starting with what people thought was their greatest locus of control, and most important, most provocative, they were able to expand to, okay, well, let's take a look at some of these well-being tools. Where else would this might fit? What else are you curious about? Where can you start? And because they've already built the efficacy around, wait, I can select, initiate, and sustain a behavior, not a fitness behavior, but a relevant, meaningful behavior, they took on more things and started to learn and collaborate from one another. So I'm thinking about that shoe analogy. I'm not hearing, well, we got to stop making these shoes. It's like, okay, how do we expand our offering? And understanding not everybody who comes into us is looking to run. They might be looking to just walk a little bit.
Yeah, thanks for adding all that too. It really is about creating a space to put something in that space that's moving someone forward. And then what you do with that can be expanded over time, but you create, I know you're familiar with the elephant, the rider, and the path that they go on, the construct where the elephant is your emotions. Well, creating a little bit of success is elephant fuel, and the elephant's going to go where it wants. So if you get your emotions pointed towards the thing you want as well, you'll have a much easier time getting there.
Space travel is scary, and it was a great analogy for what it must feel like for someone to walk into an environment that we find second nature. and highly engaging. What Joe and I have wondered with a few guests is
Yeah,
that really the first step? Could there be multiple micro steps that we could structure for people before that, kind of easing that transition?
absolutely. I 100% agree, because the old saying, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. Well, so does the journey of 1 mile or the journey of 10 feet. It still begins with one step. And it's going to be a really short journey if those first steps aren't good. So if we take good steps, we'll be more likely to have a longer journey.
I think that's what I liked about the shoe analogy and everything you said is it comes from having empathy for the person in front of you and looking at what could be their first step. And if you think about the shoe, we might be trying to give them this one size fits all shoe, but maybe they're going in a pool and they actually need a flipper. Or maybe they just need a comfortable shoe, literally a slipper to go round the house. And everything you said was trying to listen to your client to find out what excites them. And I guess with that, my question would be, you discovered in your class how the woman maybe exerted herself too much because she got roped into that competition side of it. And I've
Yeah.
definitely had people in classes where I've started to use games and some people have lit up and they're we're running around. Other people want to know the rules up front. They want to know clearly what success looks like. Others don't mind if they're working it out like improv as they go along. Um, but some of them would withdraw and they didn't like being in that environment where they couldn't really control the other people in the room. Do you have any tips for trainers to start to notice that emotional change that your client might have while they're with you?
Yeah. So that's a good observation, that that's necessary first from you, because that's the fun part of it. Is there's not everybody doesn't find the same things fun. Not everybody likes horror movies. Not everybody likes roller coasters. Some people find them terrifying. So there's always this difference. Some people don't find competition to be thrilling because they're thinking of it as I guess the traditional approach to competition, where we always think of competition as type A and it's the most competitive people that get all the headlines. So the way I tend to present this to people, if I sense that I have some people like you were mentioning, the third category of person that tends to withdraw when there's a lot of bigger personalities that either step up and want to know the rules and then they take ownership around the rules of the game or the construct that we're using. And the other people are just into the craziness, chaos of it, or the competitive nature of it. The third person there, because humans are all social species, like humans are all social, all Homo sapiens, all humans are social. We're one of the three main social species on Earth, termites and ants being the other ones. We've literally taken over the Earth because we've been so inclined to socially connect and pool resources and pool skills to become a successful species. What that means is, where I'm going with that, is that we're all social. No one is 100% an introvert, as in a lone 100% lone wolf. No one is 100% extrovert all the time either. Those people that want to pull back, they're probably not into the I want to crush the competition and hear the lamentations of their women kind of aspect of competition. That's the person that gets more of a collaborative spirit out of competition. So when I see that happening, I know I need to do more team-based games,
Mm-hmm.
where I put that person in a situation where they need to rely on, and they want their teammates to know that their teammates can rely on them to have success with the game, even if it is a fitness game. And I've seen people like that that are kind of a little bit pulled back, and then they get into it because now they're part of a team and they can rely on people and they want to be relied on, because it's the collaborative nature of the competition for them more so than it is the win or lose nature of the competition. So I hope that was helpful.
Absolutely. And it just reminds me of specific people, my husband being one,
Yeah,
and he's the one if he's disengaged in a class and I give him someone look after, then he's got the
exactly.
arm around them and he loves that team spirit working together. The other thing I found, and this might just be some of my clients, they quite like it if they think they can beat me or punish me. So, like, if they can make me, I don't know, do a sit up or a burpee or something like that, that might be just a simple, if they're successful, they get to punish me. So it kind of puts that peril in it. I find that's quite useful.
I
Whatever
can
gets
see.
people moving, right?
Exactly. Yeah. My mum, as I've spoken to you before, she likes the Prosecco, but if I get her moving enough for it, then it's not so bad.
I had
Just
an interesting idea once for a charity event I wanted to do at the club I was working at. I never did it, but I'm putting this out there in case anybody wants to do it. If you have a bunch of members at a club or a bunch of clients, if you're doing a lot of one-on-one training, have everyone buy raffle tickets or something, $5-10 a ticket, and they can give you, like, one set of up to, they essentially get 10 reps to give you. They could give you 5 reps of one exercise, 5 reps of another. And so they just buy their raffle tickets. They can buy as many raffle tickets as they want. And then you have to do all of those exercises and all of those sets in one continuous go. If it's like 3 hours or something, then you have this sort of marathon spectacle of physical activity that you put yourself through to raise money for whatever charity might be meaningful to you. Anyway, just throwing that out there in case anybody wants to use it. It's for people who like to torture their trainers.
Yeah, I think those things are great. Dartboards as well, use that so that they throw the dart, and if they get a triple red or whatever, that has a nasty thing for me to do.
That is
Maybe that's
brilliant.
better for you. I've kind of like steered into the avenue of making fitness more fun for people, so I tend to attract less people that want to harm me at this point in my career. Maybe earlier I did have more of those kind of clients.
Oh dear.
Joe, could
Yes.
you just briefly, do you think it would be a good idea in this point in the conversation to maybe bring up, I know he's no longer with us, but Graham Wall. I
Mm,
think there is something valuable there about how
100.
he connected a certain population who has a
Yeah.
lot of barriers between exercise, initiating and sustaining exercise, and where that entry point was for them.
Um, Graham was I think he was the largest man in the UK to
Mhm.
manage to lose the largest amount of weight.
Mm.
And with that experience, he set up his business to help other people that were on that weight loss journey, or just to try and make movement something that people could do. And we had him on the archives. Unfortunately, he's no longer with us.
Mm.
Um, but his journey, he was very open at talking about his experiences and how he would actually, if he knew that Amazon were delivering a parcel, he would plot to keep his children at home so he wouldn't have to get up and answer the door. So he talked about the way his mind was constructing around that. But what he did so beautifully was, through losing his brother, he said, that should have been me. I'm the person that was on the way to early death.
Mhm.
And it emotionally took him, and he said, I am going to do everything I can to lose weight and have bariatric surgery. And so that's what he did. But more importantly, after that, he would meet clients in the car park and sit in the car with them and then say, I just want you to go through the expectation of what's now going to happen. We're going to take some steps and we're going to walk towards the gym. And if at any point that's too much, we get to stop. We get to rethink about it and we get to go back to the car. But each time you want to come and take a step further, I'm going to be there at your side. And he would tell the gym that he was coming in with his clients. And so he gave that safe space for
Yeah.
someone to come in. And he also uh, beautifully went through the expectation. And so that if someone had already had a bad experience, he was resetting that.
That's great. That's a tremendous story of how he would handle that. I think everyone listening to this would be advised to remember that human brains prioritize short-term rewards. And the main reason We have a brain. It's constantly on the lookout for threats to survival. That's kind of all it does all day long. And if something feels threatening, you won't go towards it. Powerfully, you will not go towards it. And so if it's exercise or fitness or the idea of getting healthier feels too threatening, feels too scary, feels like it's too much, you're going to prioritize feeling good now. As Bobby was saying, the competition is not other gyms. It's happy hour. It's the bars. It's the palatable food that's going to make me feel good in the short term, because our brains prioritize short-term rewards. And this isn't a criticism of humans. I think it's important to add that. I will not let anyone feel bad about struggling, because Homo sapiens has been around 300,000 years. We've got this new world we've created for about the last 100 or so, where we've engineered the need for movement to be connected to survival out of modern life. For all of human history, our brains have not wanted to waste physical activity on something that wasn't directly related to survival. And secondly, all of our threats were short-term and of a physical nature. I have to either stop myself from becoming prey, or going to get prey, or hunt and gather so I can eat. So there's a real connection with survival and movement. Well, now, instead of short-term physical stressors, we have long-term psychological stressors. Am I going to have enough money to retire on? Am I going to have a job in 5 years? You know, am I going to, it's all this long-term stress, and it's all psychological. We can't bring any physical performance to bear in that moment to successfully navigate that challenge. But our machinery of stress still sits there, and we're going to prioritize short-term rewards. So lowering the threat level around taking those first steps toward the thing that's going to be that's going to present you the opportunity to have better health is a powerful shift to make for someone. So I applaud Graham for doing that, and I applaud anyone else that does that for people, because it's a tremendous gift you can give someone to create that shift in their perspectives. Another thing I try to teach the industry, and I try to put all this stuff as succinctly as possible, and I'll just close my answer to my discussion around Graham's practices with this. I'll say this a lot, so if anyone's heard me say this before, I'm not going to apologize, because I really believe this. You can't change a body in a single workout, but you can change a mind. You can change how someone thinks and feels about physical activity, and then they'll start showing up long enough to get the physical changes. Our goal is not to change anyone's bodies, it's change the mind first. And then once that's done, the bodies will almost change themselves, because they're drawn to it and they show up often enough to get the results.
I think that is so powerful. We see all the time in social media, women should do strength training when they're going through menopause, climacteric periods, or if you're taking GLP-1s, you've got to do strength training. But nobody does anything because we've been told to. We do it because we've experienced something positive in that. And like you said, if you can get someone in that has a good experience, it doesn't matter whether they didn't lift a weight, they just lifted, what was it, a plastic chicken? If they just lifted that plastic chicken and threw it at somebody, they hadn't fun and they had an experience that makes them want to come back. Because I think, like I've said to you on talks before, no one deadlift, no one squat changes bodies, but it does change.
Yeah, just, I'll say to anyone listening, do an experiment tomorrow. If you're an avid exerciser, skip your workout. You're not going to wake up the next day having massive physical transformation to an unhealthy body. And where I'm going with that is, likewise, if you do a single workout, you're not going to wake up the next day with a massive physical transformation. But if you can change the way someone thinks and feels about physical activity and exercise, and notice I always use those two terms distinctly, because they are different. Exercise is just a specific form of physical activity that happens to be challenging enough that it creates physical change. But all physical activity is going to benefit us. And everybody knows now that moving more regularly throughout the day is a true path to health. And certainly we want those little spikes of exercise throughout the week, but we need to move more regularly as well. So if we change how someone thinks and feels about exercise and physical activity, we'll change their level of participation in it. Doing one workout, missing one workout, it's not going to change really anything in your body, but it can change something in how you think and feel.
Absolutely. That's like a drop the mic moment.
Yeah, there's a lot I could comment on that, because it aligns so much with so many conversations I'm having, but there's no need to, because I think that's pretty much it, isn't it?
I think if we can get rid of the big dumb cups, so that You know, people have these massive cups of water. I'm like, no, go back to a little thimble. So you have to keep walking to the tap to get another drink. You know, stand up when you're doing a meeting or go for a walk when you're doing a meeting, those sorts of things. If we can get those snacks, and the research is there, those exercise snacks throughout the day, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, they're still going to create that more positive attachment to movement.
You completely
Agree.
had me on that, except for the thimble. I'm not doing the thimble thing. I don't think
Shot glasses of water, maybe then, if not a thimble.
a reasonable person is going to carry around a thimble, Joe. But otherwise, yeah, brilliant. Absolutely.
I know there's so many more topics we could go into. I mean, implicit learning, gameplay, the coordination, brain health, things that you could achieve so much in the GLP-1s, but that's probably enough for today. So we can make sure that our listeners go and get a little movement snack in. Thank you
For
very
sure.
much for joining us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Glad to do it. It's always fun to talk to people that are passionate about making everyone else's life better. And I hope anyone listening to this, if whatever one thing stood out to you, if it's two things, whatever one thing, just take action on something. There's something that's going to bounce around in your head, hopefully. And that's what change is all about, is taking action on a small thing. My father got out of shape because he engaged in many small behaviors over a long period of time. And likewise, living in a body that works, living in a body that feels better is done the same way. It's engaging in small behaviors, multiple small behaviors over long enough time. It's the number of actions times the amount of time, or plus the amount of time, depending on whatever math formula you want to use, is what creates results. It's not big changes over a short period of time. It's multiple small changes. So if you start taking action on something that maybe clicked with you, don't delay, just do it right away and start to make that U-turn, whether you're in the industry or not. So just do something differently based on what you heard. That's the reason we listen to things like this and we show up for them, is to get better at what we do and contribute to a better quality of life for all of our fellow humans.
And where can people find you if they want to reach out to you?
Sure. The easiest place is to just check either of my two websites, just funtensity.com. It's FUNTENSITY.com, or aionfitness.com. You mentioned earlier, that's where I kind of do everything, my speaking, my training, my consulting work. The intensity stuff is really centered around the brain fitness based high intensity interval training. So that other site is aionfitness.com, AION, and the word fitness.com. Social media, you can either go to just use the FunTensity handle, or all the sort of everything else is just my first and last name, and then add the word fit, just Jonathan Ross Fit, JONATHANROSS, and then FIT at the end.
You're very good at doing that. I was going to say I can just write that at the end of the captions as well, but you did that very well.
No worries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby. Thank you, Joanne. Enjoy spending this time with you both. And yeah, I hope it was valuable to everyone listening as well.
Very much.